You guys can start whenever you would like to.
Okay, I'm Shayla, and this is Ben, and our presentation is on drone strikes and nuclear weapons. For some background, the first nuclear weapon was invented by the United States in 1945, in which we dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan towards the end of World War II. Today, drone strikes are a primary weapon used by the United States military in the ongoing war on terror. Drone strikes are used mainly because they are a lot cheaper than other weapons. It is a lot less expensive to train a fighter pilot and also to buy the jet that they will fly. And it also can reduce the amount of troops killed in the war because it is easier to send a drone after a target than it is to send a group of soldiers. However, the precision promised by drone strikes has a large margin of error. In 2006, Ayman Zawahiri, the current leader of Al-Qaeda, who also appeared on the FBI's most wanted terrorist list, became the target of a drone strike. 10 years later, in 2016, he remains alive, but the drone strike sent to kill him managed to kill 30 civilians instead.
Why this is important is because as of right now and for most of U.S. history, we have been in conflict with many different countries, and in conflict there's always innocent lives that are lost, but recently as the development of nuclear weapons has definitely been ramped up with Russia and the U.S. in the Cold War and other sort of just nuclear weapons being made, there's the possibility of a nuclear confrontation between countries that decide that they want more land or whatever it is that angry countries want. And this is also important because the U.S. is directly involved in almost everything that the whole world is doing. And as citizens of the U.S., that means that we are directly involved in whatever goes on in the world. Another key and an important fact is the possibility of a global annihilation of everyone, because that's what nuclear weapons can do. Just cause fallout and just lots of people die. My research question was, to what extent should the U.S. police the world? My point of view is this was just enough to stop potential nuclear threats. My viewpoint on this was that the U.S. is justified in restricting foreign nuclear weapons because we have a better understanding and implication of the use of nuclear weapons, as seen before in the background of us dropping 2 nuclear weapons on Japan. And we also have the second most nuclear weapons in the world at about 7,100 as of 2016. And we have a far superior ability in controlling our nukes as opposed to any other country, as seen in the fact that we have nuclear subs that are able to destroy pretty much any country at any point in time that we want to, and nuclear-capable jets and planes that can drop nuclear weapons on countries. Some of the sources that I used were all credible and just good because I used the United Nations, the White House, and other government sites, usually that has .org at the end of it, so that's usually a good indicator that it's a good site.
My research question was, is the United States justified in sending drone strikes overseas? And because of my research, which included sources such as the International Criminal Law Review, the White House, and the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, my point of view was that at this point our policy is not justified because it violates international humanitarian law. Our drones create an overwhelming amount of collateral damage, and in the damage that creates conditions that can also create more terrorists.
So what we did to connect our 2 questions was to come up with another question that would altogether just show both of our point of views. And what we come up with was, to what extent should the U.S. be involved in foreign affairs? I said that we should be involved to a point to allow the ability to look at potential threats, such as countries trying to create nukes to destroy other countries, terrorist cells such as ISIS and other forms of terrorists that just want to kill a certain group of people.
And we also felt that our involvement in foreign affairs should not extend to increasing civilian casualties or damage. For data, in my research, I found that drone strikes at this point are violating international humanitarian law in the country of Pakistan. Right now, in order to comply with the law, our government would have to share a target, like a list of our targets with the government of Pakistan, but because we have refused at this point to share a list with them, we are violating international humanitarian law. Also, to connect with the story of Ayman Zawahiri, drones cause an overwhelming amount of collateral damage. This was shown in 2014 when the hunt for 41 men led to the unintended deaths of an estimated 1,147 civilians. The damage caused by these drones also creates conditions for terrorists to rise because civilians who have lost their loved ones in drone strike violence or violence in general now sympathize with the cause of the terrorists, which can lead to them taking up the cause themselves.
As of 2016, the nuclear capable countries in order from, well, definitely not in order, but the U.S. has 7,100 nukes, Russia has 7,300, the UK has 215, France has 300, Israel has 80, Pakistan has 140, India has 110, China has 260, North Korea has 8, according to multiple sources, but specifically armed control them. The annual U.S. military budget as of 2016 is $585 billion, which is accounted for 54% of the total budget, as seen from the Department of Justice. Some current events that connect to nuclear weapons is the Iran nuclear deal, which is a deal between Iran and the U.S. that says that Iran has to block 4 pathways to any sort of atomic bomb for at least 10 to 15 years. They have to relinquish 97% of its enriched uranium stockpile and needs to remove 2/3 of its 20,000 uranium-enriched centrifuges, as well as submitting very intrusive and specific inspections to make sure that they're not intending to create any nuclear weapons. Another recent and in the past that has been happening is North Korean nuclear weapon strike or tests, not strikes, that have been happening since 1985. Usually these strikes are long-range ballistic missiles that are aimed either at the U.S. or usually neighboring countries such as South Korea to strengthen their country and to try to pose a threat to other countries.
Recently, in 2016, the United States has used drone strikes to kill 2 important members of the Taliban. In Pakistan, we killed Taliban commander Maulana Noor Saeed in January, and the leader of the Afghan Taliban, Mullah Akhtar Mansour, in May. In July 2016, the first confirmed example of the United States paying reparations to the families of civilians that have been killed was reported, in which €1 million were paid to the family of an Italian aid worker killed in Pakistan. For our resolutions, we agreed that the United States should lessen their involvement in foreign affairs.
I said that maybe as far-fetched as it may seem, probably the best case scenario would be that all nuclear-capable countries decide to just deactivate all nukes so that there's not a possibility of total global annihilation, but that's a little too far-fetched for any country to decide to do that. So possibly a more reasonable one would be to create deals and treaties that would restrict all nuclear weapons from the possibility of being used from every nation so that we could further bring our countries closer together rather than apart.
And to fix the policy of our drone strikes to comply with international humanitarian law, I said that a resolution could be the United States simply sharing information with the government of the countries where drone strikes are occurring.
So, Ben, when analyzing your topic, what do you believe was the strongest counter-argument to your conclusion? Because your conclusion was deactivation of nuclear weaponry and or building on some treaties to restrict the use of nuclear weapons. Most of the countries that possess nuclear weapons outside of us and Russia have claimed to be self-defense measures to protect their own security and freedoms and independence in their countries. What would be a counter-argument to them being able to actually grow their arsenal?
Well, I would say the U.S. and Russia definitely were at war with each other, like in the Cold War, to gain as many nukes as they possibly can. And I'd say, as another country, I could definitely understand that once Russia and the U.S. decided they're not going to try to throw nukes at each other, the immense stockpile that they had would definitely be intimidating. So as countries, I'd probably be willing to do some sort of nuclear testing or other things, but the fact that other countries such as North Korea are trying to use that as a way to impose threats on such countries as South Korea and the U.S. as well is a fact that can't be overlooked because they're not trying to use it as self-defense, but more as a measure to attack other countries.
Shayla, could you describe how the content of your presentation was changed by the two of you talking about your different topics?
My content wasn't really changed because they combine well, but they're not the same thing. So Ben was dealing with nukes while I was dealing with drones, so not a lot of his information changed my argument in any way.
Okay. All right.
Done. Well done.